What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Gaelic Gridiron podcast. It's been a while since we've done an episode, but we're back again, and I'm delighted and honored to be joined by a legendary Steelers player, Mr. Rocky Bleier. Rocky, how are you?
Hi, Jimmy. Very nice. Thank you very much for having me on your program.
Rocky, having you on the podcast, it's extra special for me because not only am I a Steelers fan, I'm also a Notre Dame fan, and you played for both teams during your day.
Yeah, I know it's an interesting story, I suppose, and I had the opportunity to play with both teams. Sometimes you wonder how it happens. How did you get to Notre Dame, or how did you get to the Steelers? In my case specifically, now we're going back in time, Jimmy. We're going back in time
Not
to
not that not that long ago. You're still a young man, Rocky.
no, you're very kind. Very kind. So we go. So anyway, so coming out of high school, this was back in 1964, and I tell people, I said, we had a very good high school football team. There was a change. The baby boomers, us baby boomers, were coming of age, and so in that case, high schools were being built. And being a cradle Catholic, it was a brand new Catholic high school that was built in the latter part of the 50s. And then, my first year was 1960, and it was only a 3-year school at that time. By my sophomore year, we were a 4-year school in in a conference, and so in a conference. But we had great guys that were drawn from the area because it's a new Catholic school. And we had a great coach by the name of Torchy Clark. And I say that because he came out of the grade school programs, and he was at a rival grade school dominant coach in basketball primarily, but he also coached football. And we go to Xavier, and we get into the conference. And during that period of time, and those 4 years that we were there, we lost 5 basketball games. So we were undefeated in football, and we lost. We were undefeated my junior year and senior year. We were undefeated in both teams. We're the number one ranked team in Wisconsin. We won the state championship, and we lost the state championship my senior year. So we had some recognition, and I just say
Yeah.
recognition. Now, growing up in a small Midwestern town, Appleton, Wisconsin, during that period of time, I wasn't necessarily a Notre Dame fan. I wasn't necessarily any school fan. I mean, there was the University of Wisconsin, but it wasn't a big deal as it is today. Exposure wasn't that much, like on television and so on, as it is today.
Yeah.
And so, as I tell people, I said, probably one of the best pieces of advice. And I went to visit. It was the recruiter for Notre Dame, who had that area in Wisconsin. And he said to me, he said, listen, let's, and it made common sense to me. He said, listen, you're going to get a lot of scholarship offers, basically Big Ten schools in that area,
Yeah.
and some Division 1A schools and so on. He said, and every time you go visit that school, they're going to roll out the red carpet and show you a good time. And after you've gone to 5, 6, 7, maybe different schools, and then you have to make that decision. So it becomes somewhat confusing in how you choose to where you're going to go to school. So my piece of advice is choose 3 schools that you would like to graduate from, and not necessarily play football at.
Yeah.
Only because of the fact that anything can happen, as you well know. Injuries can,
Yeah.
wipe out your career at an early age, but at least you get a good education.
Yeah.
And for me, it just made common sense. And so I did, of course, what every good Catholic boy was taught to do, and that was to go to church, get on their knees, pray for guidance and direction, making the right choice, God. And then, like every good Catholic boy, I did what my mother wanted me to do, and that was go to Notre Dame. That's how I ended up there. But and so we weren't big, and I didn't know much history. My folks, of course, did not go to college, and there wasn't a whole lot of Notre Dame, people in that was in Wisconsin area at the time, and so we had a new coach, Eric Parsegian, wherever he came from, didn't know who that was, and by my freshman year. But it was an interesting period of time how things changed. And all of a sudden, we got great people and talent. And one of the things that changes, if I may dominate this conversation,
Absolutely, yeah.
is that in 1964, the NCAA changed their substitution ruling. So prior to that, you could only substitute 3 players at the change of the ball. So a couple of receivers, your quarterback goes out, but everybody had to play both ways. And if you think about that, now all of a sudden it really reduces opportunities for other people, because you have to have a fullback that can play middle linebacker, a running back that maybe be an outside linebacker or a safety, or, so on, they're playing both ways. Well, that changed, which allowed the coach to change positions. So all of a sudden, upperclassmen. We had a guy by the name of Pete Taranko, became an All-American defensive tackle, but he was a fullback. He was a fullback at 240 pounds, and they made him a defensive tackle. We had another running back that was like 6'4", 230 pounds. They made him an offensive tackle. So all of a sudden, these people were being moved in different directions, which opened an opportunity for other younger players to come in and play. And so we got a chance to play, and through the selection of whatever, I was playing, and we had a full backfield. So I was playing right halfback. We had a fullback and a left halfback. Nick Eddy was our left halfback, and he was an All-American at that time. And so, so I was the backup. As a sophomore, I was a backup to the senior running back, who was a right halfback, and he got hurt the last couple of games, and I got a chance to play. Not that it was, but I was just in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And the following season, you get a chance to start, and we won a national championship by my junior
Exactly,
year.
and that was my next question. You actually won a national championship at Notre Dame, so that in itself is a massive achievement. But I'd love to get your thoughts on the current program and what you think their chances are of winning a national championship in the next couple of years. I see you laughing there. You're probably thinking the same thing as I am. Slim to none.
Well, that's right. So I think there's a couple of things that need to be looked at, and that is coaching staff, one, and I say that just in general because it becomes a developed leadership role, an experience role of being able to, it's very difficult. They're very difficult. It's a wonderful guy. It's very difficult to come as an assistant coach with no head coaching experience anywhere else, and then step in at Notre Dame and the expectations we have. And so, but with time, and experience, that will change. And so that's what we have to do, is to be able to give them some time. Recruiting helps, and obviously coming to Notre Dame. And one of the other things, and so this is the whole portal system that we have now, I don't necessarily agree with. I don't agree with it. I agree with it, and I understand if people aren't playing, that they can move someplace else. But you know how difficult it is to get transfer players to come in and then try to work as a unit when they haven't played together for a year or 2 years, and get to know one another. So those are some of the difficulties. But I think from a leadership role, and from the ability to get good personnel, it's just it's just it's part of that leadership, but also is creation of getting those teams and individuals to work together, and that just takes some time.
So you went from Notre Dame, you were drafted by the Steelers, but you were also drafted to Vietnam. So you had a bit of a circuitous route to the pros, and it's such an inspirational story, and people can read all about it in your book. But I'd love to hear about it in your own words, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, so I did. I was so I got drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. You know, and and I so as I said or made mention, I was we won the national championship my junior year, and then I was selected captain of the football team my senior year, and in the second last game of the season, I tore my ACL in that game, and I missed a game out in Southern Cal, and then the draft came in. Unlike today, it's in February, but it was in April, so it bought me a
Yeah.
couple months. So there was this little asterisk, I'm sure, that was over my my name having an ACL tear, and now I'm going to listen to your listeners out there. I was not an All-American. I was not a Nick Getty. I was not the primary running back and so on. I had a role, and I played that role very
Yeah, I'm
well.
sure you played it very well as well. I mean, you contributed to a national championship program at Notre Dame, which
Well,
is no mean feat by any stretch of the imagination.
well, that's right, but so you fit in anyway. So I my expectations weren't high about the draft, and so it was a 3-day draft, and they had 17 rounds back then, unlike the 7 rounds they have today, and 17 rounds. The mentality, and I'm saying this, is that the mentality, and the reason they had 17 rounds, because the mentality of teams was that you're part of this team. If we draft you,
Yeah.
you're part of this team. Not and so, and if you don't make it within this confines, then other teams go, well, there's something wrong with him. He's not going to fit into our team and so on. So, and so the first round draft was on Friday, and so that was like the first 3 rounds or whatever it is, and then Saturday was the next maybe 7, 8 rounds, and then the Sunday it went quickly because it was the end of so anyway, and I'll have to tell you the story if I may. So
Please.
we were out. We went out to dinner. My roommate, a couple of my teammates, with a family that took us under their wing and and entertained us and shared their time with their families. So we went out to dinner, and we went back to their house, and the draft was going on later that night. And so our conversation after dinner back there, we had a libation in which we were sharing with one another, and so it was much like, hey, spring break's coming up, and where we're going to go, how's the school, what are we going to do with our futures, blah blah blah, and so on. And are you going to go home? Are you going to stay here for spring break? And so then all of a sudden it was and in the draft today, several people were picked from the South Bend area. So and so from Indiana went here. So and so from Indiana State went here. And Notre Dame's captain, Bob Rocky Bleier, was drafted number 16th by the Pittsburgh Steelers. There was a lull in the conversation. Hey, congratulations. Anyway, where are we going to go on spring break? And that was my celebration of being drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I was the 417th person picked in the draft that year. And I tell people, that I was 16th round, but there were 17 rounds. At least I was not the last guy picked.
At least you weren't Mr. Irrelevant, Rocky.
That's right.
You weren't picked dead last. That's the main thing.
That's right. So you got to a team. So I came to Pittsburgh, and they had only, they had only won a couple games the year before and so on. And in my rookie year, they only won 2 games. They were the losingest football team in the first 40 years of history. But I made the team. and I made the team. And I tell you the reason I made the team, because of the fundamentals that were taught to me at Notre Dame, and how the little things make a difference
Yeah.
in one's career. I always tell people this. I said one of the things that we used to do or had to do is that if you were lined up on the right side of the line, you had to get into a left-handed stance. When you lined up to the left side of the line, you had to get into a right-handed stance. Now, most people very naturally get into a right-handed stance only because that's the thing they're taught. Most people are right-handed, so that becomes the dominant. And I tell people this, I said, okay, fine. You have to make a change. Well, how awkward is it? I said, well, fold your arms, so people fold their arms. Okay, just fold your arms. Okay, fine. Now fold them the other way. Then you're going, it's not natural. Anyway, so that was kind of it, and all the reasonings why from an approach point of view, whether it be a hole or a blocking, where you were one step crossover, whatever it might be, you were in the right position to be able to block, and or turn up into a hole, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
Those little things, made a difference. Now, I'm going to quickly fast forward. In my rookie year with the Pittsburgh Steelers, we're in training camp. And so the coach, and at that time, they didn't know what to do with me. I mean, I was another running back. I also played some slot back positions, catching the ball at Notre Dame, in which we had. So I'm with the receivers at the time. He said, now, there's a change. The rules change. The rules change in the NFL. There's no more cross-body blocking, coming back and trying to block that outside linebacker. Or clipping them. Now you need to get your head in front of their shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
So, how many of you can get into a left-handed stance?
So it served you well, the little things of Notre Dame.
That's right. And I raised my hand, and I'm the only one. And he said, because we don't want you to cheat in, we want you in a left-handed stance, so all you have to do is drive down that line on your right foot. And so, I say this and share it, but I think at times it's just those little things that make a difference in how you approach life and how and how they approach you and what you can do. And so, anyway, so so I got a chance to play. Made the team, special teams player primarily. And so I played 10 of 14 games at that season. When we're practicing at old Pitt Stadium. That's where we practiced. That's where we played our games as well. And so we were in the locker room, and one of the locker room guys hollers at me. He said, "Hey, Rock, you got a letter over here." So we had this table where all the fan mail would be deposited for all the players. It was a place I'd never visited from that first day of training camp up through that 10th game. Now we're near the 417th person picked in the draft. Anyway, so I go over and pick up my letter, and I think, well, who's writing me a letter? Maybe it's a Notre Dame fan, wants an autograph from a former captain. So I picked it up very tenderly, opened it up, and it said, "Greetings. We'd like to inform you that you've been inducted into the armed services of your..." And it was my 1A classification. No, it was my draft notification that I had, and I go, oh my goodness gracious. Now, probably, and I have to backtrack because part of the story is probably the happiest day of my life at that moment in time was we were in training camp, and Bill Austin was our head coach. And right after our practice, he pulled me aside. He said, "Listen, Mike," I said, "I'm sorry, this letter was opened accidentally. And it was my 1A classification, which made me eligible to be drafted.
Mm-hmm.
But we think you're good enough to make this team, and we will take care of this for you." whatever taking care of this meant, I did not know, but I'm thinking, oh, okay, fine, whatever.
Didn't ask.
Got me in the reserve, National Guard, whatever it might be. And so, well, a couple of months went by. A couple of months went by, and so I checked on it. And I said, "Did you hear anybody about taking care of this?" And he said, "Well, we're having our problems, but don't worry about it. The general retired, the congressman got defeated. All our contacts are not there anymore." He said, "But don't worry about it." Well, I didn't have to worry about it because shortly thereafter I got that draft notification, and it was to report the next morning.
Jesus.
At 7 a.m. I mean, it was just that. It was post dated or whatever it is. Got lost.
Yeah.
But my report day, and I go, oh my goodness. Well, my world was turned up very quickly upside down.
Absolutely.
And so, and went through the whole process, and I was gone to basic training. And so then, after basic advanced infantry training, like thousands of other young men during that period of time, I found myself in Vietnam.
And people can, for anyone listening who wants to find out more about your incredible story of resilience, the book is called Fighting Back, and I'm very much looking forward to reading about it. We won't dwell too much on it here because we want to give people something to look forward to. But I'd love to know, Rocky. I mean, you had such an incredible career with the Steelers, when you did come back from your time in the Army and abroad. You won 4 Super Bowls, and I'd imagine something like that is probably one of your favorite memories from your entire playing career.
And the interesting thing, it was much like Notre Dame, changes that took place, people getting the right people, leadership, having leadership, Ara Parsegian, right coaching staff,
Yeah.
talented people, and all of a sudden it meshes together. And this was kind of the same thing. So I come back. Ara Parsegian, Chuck Noll is now the new head coach. He won one game, his first year there, and lost 13 thereafter. But all of a sudden it started to develop, and players started to develop, and getting the right players, and starting to build a team. And so by 1972 was the first time in the history of the franchise did a team win the division, and we got into the playoffs. And during the playoffs that year, and I'm going to remark on it, it boiled down to one play that changes the course and direction of that team against the Oakland Raiders in the last 26 seconds of the game. A deflected pass, scooped up by Franco Harris as he scoots 55 yards down the sideline to score to win the game. And it was really like things changed. We didn't lose the game, we won the game. And it was this sense of confidence. And we lost the following week against Miami, their perfect season that year. But it was a start. And so 73 came, and then 74, we won in 74. We won the division and got into the playoffs and went to the Super Bowl in 74 at that time. But you could just see the people rising to the occasion, having their talent, bringing out, and starting to win and making things happen. And so that was really exciting to be a part of that.
Was Franco your favorite teammate that you played with throughout your career with the Steelers?
Franco was a good friend. My favorite teammate was Jack Lambert.
Okay.
And the only reason I tell you, because he was my roommate before. Oh, I got so many stories I could tell you about Jack Lambert.
Oh,
but
please.
I can't. He's still alive, so.
I could tell you, but you could tell me, but you'd have to kill me afterwards.
That's right. I would have to do that. So the thing about playing with Franco and getting an identity with that backfield. So with the backfield, I getting a chance to play with him, and with Bradshaw, and right at that right time in 1974, when I break into the starting lineup, but playing with Franco and understanding Franco and his sense of his ability and so on, and he was a hard worker. One of the things just that, as I remember with Franco, that every time he carried the ball in practice, he would run 40 yards. I mean, he would run 40 yards. He would run 40 yards. He'd come back, not run through the line, stop, come around like I did, but he would run 40 yards and and come back. And it was kind of that sense of discipline. And he was a big man. I mean, he was 225 pounds as a big fullback, and he had great speed, not necessarily electric speed, but all of a sudden, boom, he could turn it on, and he had a long stride. Anyway, so, but he was he worked hard at his position to be able to do it. So it worked well, within that, and I had a great deal of respect for him in that backfield, and so it wasn't as if we knew our roles. Our roles it wasn't as if I was trying. How come I don't get the ball?
Yeah.
Franco gets the ball all the time. Kind of an attitude. My role was to block for Franco as I best possibly can in that situation.
And that's a pretty tall task to block for a man of Franco Harris's stature. I mean, I would imagine he would, in this day and age, with the way that the positions are, I would envision Franco blocking for you, with
that's right.
the slight height and weight differential that might exist between the two of you now.
That's what we thought. But it didn't work out though. So it was, and so and so it worked. I mean, it worked well, and we got along well as a teammate. I tell people, one of the things is Franco was the number one draft pick when he came into the league in 1972 out of Penn State, and Franco did not have a car. Okay, and the reason he didn't have a car, because he got comments from young fans, from young kids and so on, who all they wanted to know was, "Hey, Franco, what kind of car do you have? What did you buy? You're the number one draft choice. Did you get a Cadillac? This kind of stuff." And Franco, and it turned him off. He said, because all they value is a sense of monetary worth. And that's not what I want to try to do. But, okay, to the demise with the rest of us, because we had to drive him to practice. we had to pick him up, or he'd take the bus, or he'd be late, or something like this. Thank God his rookie year, he was rookie. He was a player of the year and rookie of the year. And what came with that title was a car. So we finally got it at the end.
Happy days.
That's right, happy days. And we didn't have to drive him anymore. So.
Rocky, I mean, you had such an amazing career with the Steelers, and you were recognized as one of the kind of, I suppose, you are recognized by fans as one of the legendary Steelers players. But I'd love to get your thoughts on what the Steelers are doing now, which is expanding into Europe by marketing into Ireland to try and grow the fan base. And you might have heard from our mutual friend Pat Steenberg, there's the first of its kind. It's a fan watch party in Croke Park in less than a month's time. So, I mean, for you across there, it must be so strange to see the international fandom of the Steelers.
Well, I think it's an interesting thing from an NFL perspective. Of maybe spreading this game out, a little bit better. But the Steeler relationship, obviously, with Ireland, has been kind of in the mix over years. The Rooney family, Irish established family, here, and their relationship with Ireland. When Dan Rooney was ambassador to Ireland and established that relationship, that it kind of, continues and kind of build upon it. And so, Patrick Steenberg, to your listeners, and he's involved with global football, in which he brings high school, teams over and around the world to be able to play and have that experience in different countries. And at times, sometimes may play from a team that is established in that country, as he did in Ireland. And so it becomes a great relationship builder, I think, one, honestly, for the NFL and for a relationship with the Steelers in that country. And so anything that we can do to build upon that becomes better in the relationship and how global football, not only Patrick's, but global football from an NFL perspective, and establishing and pushing out a fan base, outside of the continental United States becomes very important, I think, to all sports, and so yeah, so we'll be hanging around, and that
Have
was
you ever been to Ireland, Rocky?
no,
I
I
forgot
have
to ask you. That's usually my first question at the start of every podcast: is have you ever been to Ireland?
that's right. No, I haven't, but I'm coming. So I wanted Patrick to so I want the Roonies to establish a base. Patrick is built on that base. So now I have a lot of names from people who I can call upon. You being one.
Absolutely. Yeah. Whatever I can do to get you across here, Rocky. I mean, can you picture a Steelers game, be it regular season or otherwise, taking place in Dublin, in Ireland, in the next couple of years?
Oh yeah. Oh, very much so. Yeah, I can see it like that, and that take place. And so it would be terrific to be able to do that. I just want to let you know also, um, I do have some Irish in me. So
Okay.
there's a relationship. McGuire, my grandmother was a McGuire out of Minnesota. But anyway, so I just
It's
want to
it's
take pride in that.
it's definitely an Irish name. Rocky, I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I have one last question for you. Who do you think is going to win the Super Bowl this year?
Oh, nice question.
You kind of have to say the Steelers, don't you?
I have no answer. I mean, I wish I could, I wish I could say the Steelers, but I just don't think that they're going to be able to do that this
Yeah.
year as they built this team. So it is, it's midway during the season, and so we will just have to see. The second half of the season now becomes important in regards to injuries, personnel, and who goes, who picks up momentum, who changes it. I mean, we've seen it so many times in the past.
Yeah.
Teams that struggled and all of a sudden kick in and and come out of the blue, let's say. So it's a chicken way of getting out of your question because I have
You
no.
haven't answered my question. You haven't given me a definitive answer, so
I have because I don't
you're trying to
know.
dance around that one.
I'm trying to. Because I just don't know. I don't know. And I don't even know to pick. I'm not even smart enough to even pick somebody.
Well, listen, Rocky, it's been an absolute, such a pleasure talking to you and listening to the amazing stories and hearing about your playing career. I really sincerely hope you do get across here soon and we get a chance to catch up in person. And yeah, all the best for the future.
All right, Jimmy, I appreciate it very much. Thank you for your time.
Great talking to you, Rocky.
All right.